Hey, what is going on, guys? So my last video on Imani Barbarin performed quite well, so I figured why not do a video on her post or her notes post, letting everybody know why she cannot stand white vegans. And no, that's not YouTube vegans, it is white vegans. A brief disclaimer before we start, there's a lot of ambiguity in this notes post, so we're gonna have to be speculating from time to time as to what Imani means when she invokes certain terms, or just anything for that matter. So let's start with number one, which is actually two things, but we'll ignore that. Number one, main organizing principle is whiteness. So normally I would just simply ask for evidence for the claim, but I think we have to do a little bit more unpacking. I'm not sure what she means by whiteness here. I found this definition, which reads, the fact or state of belonging to a human group having light-colored skin. So if we operate under this definition, the claim would be that white vegans' main organizing principle, presumably as vegan activists, is the fact or state of belonging to a human group having light-colored skin. I'm not sure what this means. Is the idea that white vegans' number one principle when doing vegan activism is specifically being around other white vegans? If that's what she means, what is the evidence for that? The second part of number one says, if you really cared about preservation and the end of animal cruelty, you turn over your family lands and capital to indigenous folk and leave. I'm not sure why she's mentioning preservation here. It seems as though she is conflating people who eat plant-based for environmental reasons with vegans, or people who follow the vegan moral philosophy. I'm also not sure how doing what she said would, number one, get us closer to ending animal cruelty, or number two, just simply end animal cruelty. Number two says, y'all keep comparing animal cruelty to slavery, which makes it sound like y'all think the enslaved were animals, which is rooted in white saviorism. So first of all, if you look at the definition of the word compare, you'll find that you can compare any two things. You can compare a rock to a glass of water. Secondly, you can recognize similarities between two groups without necessarily equating them. For example, Jewish people were killed in gas chambers, and sometimes pigs are killed in gas chambers. One can recognize this similarity between the two groups through comparison without, equating Jewish people to pigs. Number three says, you all descend into eugenics very quickly. Once disabled people, note your methodology is rooted in ableism. So to my knowledge, I've never seen somebody with a disability note that our methodology is rooted in ableism, except for right now and the other times I've read this notes post from Imani, who has a disability. Because I've never seen this happen until now, I couldn't have seen a vegan descend into eugenics very quickly after a disabled person notes that white vegans' methodology is rooted in ableism. Either way, she's making a very bold claim here. She said all white vegans do this. What is the evidence for this? Number four says white veganism is classist. You ignore the presence of food deserts and inflation on the cost of foods. So as stated in my other video on her, I'm not sure what she means by white veganism, but at least from what I've seen, there are white vegans who acknowledge there is such thing as a situation where being vegan is more difficult in a food desert than, say, being in an environment with an abundance of foods. I would not be surprised to find out there is a proportion of vegans, white or not, who ignore the presence of food deserts and the cost of foods in certain areas, making it less practical to go vegan. But why is this being extrapolated onto white vegans as a whole? Does she have evidence to suggest that white vegans disproportionately engage in this kind of behavior compared to their non-white vegan counterparts? Number five says, while championing the need to end animal cruelty, you completely forget the labor conditions of food harvesters who are often migrant workers without legal recourse. No evidence provided again, woohoo. While I don't remember if they were white, I certainly remember vegans discussing food harvesters and slaughterhouse workers having terrible conditions, especially those who are migrant workers. Oh look, here is a white vegan emphasizing the mental and physical suffering of slaughterhouse workers, which by the way, in 2019, 70% of slaughterhouse workers in the UK were considered migrant workers. And in 2015, 28.7% of meat and poultry workers in the US were considered migrants. What's interesting for non-vegans is that they support both the cruel conditions of food harvesters of plant foods and animal foods, for example, slaughterhouse workers. Number six is often disrespectful of people's cultural practices and traditions. Yeah, so this is a very simple one. If vegans are animal rights activists and a person's culture involves violating the rights of animals, for example, murdering them for a culturally special dish, of course, animal rights activists are going to take issue with that. I don't think all cultural practices should necessarily be respected simply because they're part of a culture. If you have a cultural practice that involves killing innocent beings, I'm not sure why we should respect that cultural practice simply because it's cultural. Surely human rights activists wouldn't respect a cannibalistic culture whose culinary dishes require the killing of innocent humans. And I would think Imani would agree with that, and if that's the case, why is she expecting animal rights activists to respect cultures whose culinary dishes involve violating the rights of animals? In summary, there are plenty of cultural dishes that require animal products, and by extension, the production of these cultural dishes typically require and support the systematic exploitation and murder or oppression of animals. So I'm sorry that an animal rights activist, white or not, finds the systematic abuse and murder of animals to be more important than the preservation of a culinary tradition, which, by the way, can typically be preserved with vegan mock products depending on where you live. Number 7 says white veganism has gentrified many traditional indigenous food and cuisine while simultaneously ignoring the lived conditions of those communities. We're going to take the easy route here and just ask for evidence. Number 8 says white vegans cape for animals for the same reasons as anti-abortion activists. Those who cannot speak for themselves are the perfect victims. Yeah, so this is one of the main points she made in the video I already responded to, so we're not going to respond to it again. Just check out my video responding to Imani that I released before this one. Number 9 says, much of white veganism is just fat phobia and diet culture turned into activism. Many of you have disordered eating that is covered up as a lifestyle. So she seems to be conflating plant-based diets for health with animal rights activism. I'm also not sure what is white about the plant-based diet for health community. It seems to take on the likes of many different kinds of people. I do agree there are people who have disordered eating who cover it up as a lifestyle, but I have no clue what this has to do with white vegan activists fighting for animal rights. Number 10 says, because it's centered in whiteness, you all have poor organizing skills and don't do anything substantive outside of shock value. So here she says all, so presumably she's referring to all white vegans. And absolutely, yes. Earthling Ed and Joey Carbstrong, 2 white vegan activists, have poor organizing skills and haven't done anything substantive outside of shock value. Definitely. Number 11, you all are poor communicators and persuaders. Given such a substantial lifestyle change for most people, you offer no methods to slowly transform one's diet. You don't even show any joy about it. Totally. If you Google how to go vegan, you will find 0 white vegans giving tips on how to slowly transform your diet. And you'll also find them not having any joy about it either. Also ironic she calls us poor communicators with the level of ambiguity and lack of evidence in this entire notes post. Number 12 says your moral superiority means nothing when you have no intention of dismantling the power structure that benefits you most. Not sure what she means by power structure here, although I have a rough idea, but I'm still going to need an elaboration either way. Oh, and this whole vegans just want to be superior kind of reaction is just cringe at this point. I've covered it in depth here. I have no idea what she means by number 13, and number 14 just says, you're annoying. This is probably more substantive than anything else gone over in this entire notes post. Amazing. All right, guys. Well, that's the end of the video. Let me know what you think below. Let me know if you have any other objections to some of her, reasons why she can't stand white vegans. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel and get early access to content, you can click the link in the pinned comment and support me on Patreon, which comes with one-on-one messaging access with me. I also have a book going over most, if not all, of the anti-vegan arguments you can hear online. If you want to get that as well, that'll be linked in the pinned comment, and a link where you can support the channel through buying merch and getting vegan protein powder. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dude,
fuck off. I don't want anything to do with you. Don't ever speak to me again. You're a fucking piece of shit.
Even vegans don't get your weird, stupid wannabe sense of irony here. Who is your audience? Nobody gets these dumb jokes. Dude,